All right. Well, I suppose we'll go ahead and get started. I am Crystal, the Senior Marketing Manager here at Living Security, and I'm so grateful, Erin, for you joining us today and sharing your wisdom. For all of you who have not had the opportunity to meet Erin, Erin is an information security risk analyst at Syniverse. He's an accomplished GRC analyst and holds a master's in cybersecurity, specializing in cyber intelligence. So his mission is to make the world a safer place by providing individuals and businesses with the necessary practices and knowledge to protect themselves from, well, themselves. So Aaron's unique career path has endowed him with an unconventional set of skills that challenges the notion that a traditional IT or cyber background is a prerequisite for success in the field. And so really excited to have you on today, Aaron, and share your knowledge with all of us.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you so very much for having me. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to do this. So yeah, like you said, one of the things that I do, especially at my company, is help teach people how to protect themselves, right? And that's taken a lot of different twists and turns over the last couple of years. And one of those new phrases that are coming out, because nothing ever stays the same for very long, is human risk management. We've heard a lot of that recently, and so I think that's a wonderful topic to tackle and discuss because it is a little bit different than the traditional training that we have been doing over the last few years, right? So the first thing kind of get underway is, what is human risk management and how does that differ from traditional security awareness training and things like that? And the way that I view it and the way that I like to really explain it to other people is it takes that, the legacy of security awareness training, which was typically phishing, clicking on links, email based risk, and kind of expanding it to really everything that we as people do and the risk that we pose to an organization or to ourselves on a personal level, and take into consideration all the different things that we have. There's let's see, we've got QR codes that are out there now. We've got text messages that are coming in all the time. We have if you're an executive, whaling, that's another one. It's certainly phishing and spear phishing, but now we're also getting things that can kind of create problems with Zoom calls. There's that very famous call from last year where the person was duped into sending money because the people on the call looked and sounded like people from the organization, but they really weren't. So we have to worry about all these different things, phone calls as well. All these different areas create different kinds of risks that we need to now start training on and start teaching people on. Passwords, making sure that the passwords are long enough, that they're rotated correctly, that all these different things create that human risk management profile that we didn't really touch on previously with just phishing, right? Now, the Verizon DBIR, the data breach investigation report, they came out and they said that this year, or this past year, it was about 68% of all of the data breaches involved some sort of accidental human action, some sort of errant thing that we as people did, right? And which is great. I mean, that's down from 74% from the previous year, but that's still pretty high. And so we really need to do a better job of training people to do the right things and to do to help us out. So a quick first thing is fill in the blank. Humans are, and I can't hear anybody, but I guarantee at least one person said the weakest link. And I really want to get us away from this. Looking at people as a weak link is really kind of putting blame on people that maybe they necessarily shouldn't have, right? Because, and again, another analogy that I like to use is, I am not going to walk up to a router or a firewall, let's say, and start screaming at a firewall because its access control lists were misconfigured. And because of that, something bad happened. In the same way, it's not fair to walk up to a person and really harp on them for something that they did that maybe we didn't train them on, coming at them at that and say, oh, you should have known better. Maybe we should have done a better job of training in the first place. So instead of looking at people as a weak link, I really like to look at them as an asset, right? They can learn, we can train them, they can think for themselves and do for themselves and really be that first line of defense or that last line of defense, however you really want to look at it. But we can train those people to become better security people. And so often, I love sports, so I always use sports analogies. So often we treat people like this poor goalie here, right? Like, oh, you clicked on a link. That was really silly. How could you possibly do something like that? And through these trainings, right, and through trying to get them better, we can treat them to be maybe a little bit more like this goalie. And there he is, going all over the place, just stopping everything, right? And that's what we want to get to. We want to be able to give them the tools, give them the abilities so that they can stop everything that's coming their way. And that's really what we kind of try to do with human risk management. So how are we still a risk, even though we've been dealing with this for so long, right? Things that pop up, denial. People just don't think that they're a risk. They'll talk about, oh, I'm just one person. I'm not high enough in the organization. The organization's too big. The organization's too small. There's a lot of people that just deny that there's a problem, and that in itself is a pretty big problem. I remember back, the Titanic didn't think that they had a problem, and look how that happened. So denial is definitely a problem. A lot of these scams that are going around that are affecting people, they're pretty believable. And again, if you think that you're not susceptible to it, you're really inviting some pain coming your way, right? Scale also. If you've got a company of several thousand people, that's several thousand points of potential entry. And you only need one person to fall for something to be able to open your organization up. So it doesn't have to be super believable. It just has to trick one person. Distraction. I mean, I don't know about you, but right now I have multiple computers, multiple phones, tablets sitting in front of me, all doing different things. During the summer, I had multiple children running through the house. Distractions really do make a big issue for risk management, right? Because when you're distracted is when you let little things slip. So distraction is another big reason that we are still a risk. And then our own psychology, the criminals know how to use our own brains against us, right? And so that's a significant problem. They like to use things like the 7 principles of persuasion. And if you're not familiar with them, that's social proof, reciprocity, commitment, authority, liking, scarcity, and fear, I believe. And each person is different, right? I may be able to stop a threat that's in one area of authority because that isn't something that necessarily impacts me as much. But fear-based, now that's something that I need to worry about. But somebody else may fall for something completely different. And so being able to treat each person a little bit differently and understand the fact that we all are a little bit different means we need to take that risk and quantify it for different people, because different people are going to be affected in different ways. And so that's the reason why with a traditional training where we kind of just sent out one thing and everybody got the same thing, it doesn't really necessarily protect you in the way that you really want. So how can we protect ourselves? Well, address that human component early and often. Send out training, send out information, talk to people about it. If you're onboarding somebody and policy says you've got 30 days to get through all of your training, great, but why wait 30 days? Like, here's your badge, here's your computer, here's your security training. Start working on people early and get them trained up as fast as you can so that they know what they're supposed to be doing, so they know what they have to look out for. Another thing is create policies, create procedures. As as a so-called firewall, something that stops people from doing the bad things that we're trying to avoid, right? So if someone tries to come in and call someone and tries to get them to send money, well, now they know that what they're doing is against normal policy because it has to go through 2 or 3 people. And yes, it sounds and looks like the CEO and they are asking you to do something, but policy says you can't. That gives them an easy out to just say, well, hold on, time out. I can't do things like that. So, having those sort of risk-based policies in place really can help as well. And make sure that buy-in comes in from the top. I don't care what the policy is. I don't care what the action is. Everybody needs to follow it, because if people see executives not following things, I guarantee you that's going to trickle its way down through the entire employee population. And talk about it. Talk about these risks. Talk about the different things that you're trying to avoid people doing, right? Because the more you talk about it, the more people become comfortable with it, the more they become aware of what's going on. Encourage those conversations. Say, listen, come to me. Let's talk about these things, because if you don't, and this becomes just that topic that you talk about once a year in October when security awareness training gets sent out, then you may end up with an issue like this gentleman here, where you're on international news, and in behind you is a list of passwords tacked up on the wall. I mean, that goes against so many different things. And poor guy was the entire world saw this. So that's why you want to talk about it often. You want to get those things. Technically, listen, we've talked about this so many times: password rotation, password complexity, patching your systems, MFA, secure gateways, filtering, the alphabet soup, all of those things, as well as a SOC. You need those. You absolutely need those things in place to give yourself proper protection. But if you don't also try to properly protect your people and give them the tools that they need, you're leaving a giant gap in your security posture. Going back to that data breach report from Verizon, they found that in less than 49 seconds, less than 50 seconds, people went from target to victim with some email-based things. It takes to open up an email and then take action on something. That's taking action on and then putting information in. That's not just like clicking on a link. That's how fast things can happen. So you want to get people that information before something starts happening, and before your tools and before your vendors have to start stepping in to try to take things. You want to take that risk on ahead of time. So, identify and qualify human risks. Not every company is going to have the same risk profile or the same issues that present themselves. So when you sit down and think about it, just like how you're thinking about how can I protect myself with this tool and this tool and this tool, do the same thing with your people. Where do you see yourself having those larger risks? Where are the smaller risks? And then tackle the big ones first, right? Put out different kinds of training. There's so many different things that you can put out there. There's stories that you can tell, send out news articles, videos. Games and puzzles are huge right now. I know a lot of people like to gamify their training because it gets it interactive. It's not just that boring video that you click through. It actually gets people to interact, and when you interact, you learn, right? Another big thing is diversity. Different people inside of your organization, whether you're a big organization, small organization, local, global, everyone has different points of view. Some people speak different languages. Everybody has different experiences, cultural references. And so to be able to understand that and say, okay, great, these trainings that I'm sending out is really kind of tailored to one aspect or one area of the company, maybe one subset of the company, that leaves all of this side of the company open that maybe they didn't understand what's going on as much. So make that information diverse so that everybody can have the same experience in learning. A big thing is don't vilify failure, at least not right away. The initial part of clicking on something or doing the wrong thing, is owning up to it and then learning from it, right? It's the same thing with your kids, right? The minute you start coming down hard on them is the minute they start hiding things. And when someone takes an adverse action, that's the last moment you want them to hide something. You want them to feel comfortable coming to you and saying, "Hey, Aaron, I just did something I think is really bad, and let's look into it." You don't want them to say, "Oh no, I just did something really bad, probably. I'm not going to tell Aaron. Let's just hope it all goes away." That's not what you want. You want people to come to you and be able to speak to you. And on the same side, reward successes. My grandmother always said, "You catch more flies with honey than vinegar," and she's right. When you reward those successes, when you reward the good behavior, people are more apt to trust you and want to do stuff, but they're also going to remember it more. And on top of things, like one thing I do is I send out a PDF document, send it out, and it says, "Hey, you did a great job." And what have I done? I've deputized someone to talk about risk management to somebody else. So we're never going to be perfect, but as long as we make things as difficult as possible, then it's like that old analogy of, I don't have to run faster than a hungry bear. I just have to run faster than you. And so if we can make our company as strong as it possibly can, then maybe criminals will go somewhere else and not come after us. You want to be the guy with the shade. You don't want to be the guy with the camera, right? So with that, I'll open things up for talking. I'm sorry if I went a little bit over, but it's just something I'm really passionate about, and I can go on for hours on this stuff. So let's connect on LinkedIn. That's a link, and I'll open it up for questions.
Thanks, Aaron. Now I feel like we all need to be, I'm going to equate cybersecurity to like training a marathon so that you can outrun a bear from now on. So we do have a few questions coming in.
Great.
Kind of, I should have said this at the beginning. So there's a few in our Q&A box, and then there's a few that's been added into our chat. So I'll just start reading some of them off. Here's a good one. My organization does not buy into the idea of people being an asset. How can I change this?
That's tough. That's definitely a tough place to come from, because that hasn't always been traditionally the way we look at things, right? And so I think being able to come at it and just have a frank conversation with whomever it is that's giving you pushback on that idea, and just say, people are just as much a part of our security as anything else is, as an EDR, as a firewall, as anything else, and just kind of talk them through things. Like I was saying, you can train people to look out for things. They can absolutely learn. And because they interact so often with outside people and what could potentially be a threat actor, you need to teach them, and you need to treat them as an asset, as someone that you can build up, as opposed to just a person that shows up and does whatever their job is.
Yeah,
I guess, does that make sense?
I think it does. It does. Like Yannick also added in the chat, use the risk perspective to enable change, and doing those different things.
Yeah.
Another question is, how are you dealing with remedial training? How do you approach that?
Yeah. So, and this will differ from organization to organization, obviously, but like I said, dealing with failure shouldn't necessarily be an immediate, punishment. One of the things I remember hearing about an organization, don't know who it was, and even if I did, I wouldn't say, who had their employees worried that they would be fired if they clicked on a phishing link during one of the simulations, and everyone was terrified. And yes, people thought about phishing all the time, but people were so terrified to do anything that I can only imagine it also ground productivity to a halt as well, or at least slowed it down a lot. And you don't want to do that. So short little trainings that you can put out, or informational pieces that you can put out. After one failure, great, here's a little bit of information. After two failures, here's a little bit longer. We need to talk about this a little bit more. At a certain point, the best thing that I found is grabbing that employee, and I'll sit down in our organization, I'll sit down with them one-on-one and just say, okay, great. Let's talk about whatever it is that seems to be the problem. And why is it that this seems to be, you seem to be failing at a certain task or task? And we'll try to talk about changing their mindset more than just how could you, how dare you. That goes nowhere. That just shuts them down. And anything else that I say that may be brilliant, they're not going to listen to me because I've already shut them down. So that's one way of dealing with remedial training is start out with just little bits and pieces. And then when they do something great, reward that immediately and just say, hey, great job. You did this. We talked about it and bam, there you go. You've started learning. That makes them want to do, make them want to do it more.
Yeah. There's a great follow-up question. It's almost like somebody was doing a train of thought related to that answer. But I real quick, Clint asked if we're recording this and if it'll be available later. Yes, it will be, and it will be sent to all of you via email. But in a follow-up question to that, Aaron, is, with a small team, whenever you're talking about doing like certain individuals need a little bit more help than others, if they're like, clicking multiple times, etc. And if we're trying to take this approach, we know that being prescriptive and that being personal and personalizing training to individuals' needs is important to create adoption. How do you scale that? What is some of the things or tactics that you put into place so that when there is somebody that needs extra help, and if you have a small team, how do you make sure that you?
So like when you have a small team, how do you make that if you have a larger team? Is that what you're asking?
If your cybersecurity team is small and you have,
Oh,
a large organization that you have
yeah.
to.
Well, I think that's everybody's problem, isn't it? Like when you look at any organization, if your organization is this big, most people's cyber teams are far smaller than your overall population. And one of those things that, like I was touching on with the PDF document that I send out anytime someone, reports something, is you kind of deputize other people to be part of your security team. And it's going to take a minute, it's going to take a minute for you to kind of grow that information or grow that population within the company. But I'll tell people, hey, print it out, put it up on in your cubicle. And I've seen people put the little PDF, they shrank it down and they put it in their email signature even. And that asks people then ask, hey, what is that? Why do you have that on your wall? Why is that in your email signature? And then those people can then say, oh, well, I did X, so I got this. And then they'll be able to start talking to other people about those things. So now, yeah, maybe our security team is this big, but now I've got people from finance that are kind of, satellite security people and people from the operations team and from development and from, wherever it happens to be. The best thing we can do is just try to pull people in and try to get them to buy in as best as possible. And I've found the best way of doing that is through those rewarding experiences, because then it makes people talk about it. And the more I'm going to be talking about it all the time. Like people get annoyed with me because I talk about it so much, right? But now you start getting other voices talking about it too. People are more apt to listen because maybe they work with them, so they trust them a little bit more. Those are the sort of things that I've kind of noticed as things that work for us.
Yeah. So scaling by doing all the right things to create the culture. Yeah. So Yannick had asked a question. What are the 7 things hackers can exploit again? Did we?
Oh, there's the 7 principles of persuasion. Man, you're gonna, because I don't have my notes right up in front of me. There's fear, there's liking, there's reciprocity, there's social proof. Oh gosh, I can't remember the last 2.
I
Off
was
the
like,
top of my head, but
I'm probably gonna put Aaron on the spot.
right. I can go. I mean, I can go back and we can send it out. But if you do a quick, search for the 7 principles of persuasion, they'll pop right up. But it's the same thing that you can use to try to get people in an argument or in a debate to try to see your side is use those principles. But unfortunately, it's also what the criminals use to try to get you to fall for whatever it is that they're doing. They'll say, "Oh, hey, listen, you have to work on this quickly." Scarcity, that's another one. Scarcity. There's a scarce amount of time. We have to do this right now. Don't think, just do, right? Or listen, everybody else has given me this information. I really need you to give me this information too, because Bill and Francine and Ed and and Carla, they've all given me. You're the only one that hasn't. So because other people have given this information, you should as well. Those are those sort of tactics that criminals will use, and we fall for it. I mean, it's been how many decades that we've been talking about these things, and our brains still are very much affected by those principles. So it's hardwired up there. There's not a whole lot we can do to, other than just being aware that those are things that we need to look out for.
Awesome. And then, yeah, he said that he found it by Dr. Robert Saladini.
Something like that. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's been around for a while, and the How to Make Friends and Influence People. I don't remember who wrote that book. Same idea. They're using the same principles in that book as well. So I guess they could rename the book "How to Hack People and Steal Their Information." But
yeah. Well, I think we're at time today. Thank you again, Aaron, for coming.
Yeah. Sorry I couldn't answer more questions.
I mean, we can go a little bit over and answer a few more if it.
Yeah, if I've got a couple more minutes, we can do some more.
Let's answer a few more questions then. All right, so then here's a good one. How does HRM differ from SAT? What does that look like in practice?
Yeah, so again, security awareness training, or SAT, that is more of your traditional send out an email, hope they don't click sort of training. And that was very, very one-dimensional or two-dimensional, I guess. It's on a plane. It's you send it out, you click, bad, you don't click, good, you report, fantastic. That was security awareness training. But human risk management, or HRM, that, like I mentioned in the very beginning, that takes that initial idea and it builds off of it, because there's so much more that we as people bring as a risk to an organization. And so being able to take that idea and say, okay, great, we have we've got phones. People can have problems with answering phones, and we have people that are going to be taking photos of their home office, or and now those photos can be used against us, because now a criminal could be able to see what maybe our badges look like, and maybe they'll be able to see what sort of computer we're using, or operating system, or programs that we're using, that have a better idea. Those are risks, and being able to train people on what not to do or what to do is where that human risk management, you're managing all those different levels of risk, as opposed to just, hey, don't click on stuff. That's a huge issue. And that's one of the major areas where that we create risk as people, but there's so many other levels as well. And that's where, at least the way that I look, and I guess I should have prefaced everything with, these are my views, of what HRM is, no one else's. So that's how I view human risk management, is taking all those different levels and combining them into a profile and saying, okay, great, these are the problems that we have to mitigate and try to tamp down as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's see, it feels like a larger scope for sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So another question in our chat, is, do you find it better to punish failure or reward success?
Definitely reward success at the beginning. And like I said, at a certain point, if someone just is willfully ignoring everything that you're doing, at some point, yes, there probably will need to be some amount of disciplinary action. But at the beginning, just saying, hey, you made a mistake, let's learn from it. Let's go from here. Maybe that's a form of just a small training. Maybe that's one or two small trainings that they have to go with. Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily a punishment. That's just like saying, hey, here's how to rethink some things. But certainly rewarding when they do a good thing, that's a huge bit that's going to go a long way. And that can take many different forms. The last October cybersecurity awareness month, at our organization, we gave out little prizes. If you participate in these things, you can potentially win something. And so those sort of positive reinforcements goes a long way. And it's the same with anybody, right? You give out positive reinforcements, they're more apt to respond the way that you want. And so definitely praising and rewarding is going to go a lot further than, the carrot beats the stick, basically.
Have you done anything that is just more organic now throughout the year, in addition to, like, you did the CAM, competition reward?
Yeah.
Done
Yeah.
anything? Go ahead.
One thing I try to do is at least, and I'm sure that I have annoyed our internal communications team, because I'm constantly bringing stuff to them and saying, "Hey, I want to talk to people about this. Can we send something out about this? I want to do." But I try as much as I can to get out information about different things that I want people to look out for, or different activities that I want them to maybe stay away from, or to do more of, and try to just get that information out. I understand not everybody's going to read it, not everybody's going to listen to it, but there will be some people that will, and to those people, I've made a bit of an impact on. So, yeah, certainly, just continuing to talk about it throughout the year keeps that awareness factor up. Talking about it once a year, or even once a quarter, is not going to be enough to make people think about it, because they're swamped with their normal jobs. They're
Mhm.
doing things all the time. And so my job is not going to be, or what I do is not going to be top of mind for them. It's getting this next project done. So let's make sure that that gets done, and maybe some mistakes happen along the way. So the more we talk about it, the better.
I feel like that sets us up for this last question.
Great.
Understanding that everyone has their own jobs that they're having to do within your organization, how often should training be initiated?
I guess it really depends on what your definition of training is. I like to send, like I mentioned, I try to send out information as often as I possibly can, and that could very easily be put underneath the guise of training, because I'm teaching you about something, I'm bringing something to your awareness, and if that's the case, do it as much as you possibly can. Um, there's probably a point of diminishing returns. Don't send 3, 4, 5 things out daily, but certainly try to try to limit what you're doing to be very impactful, and sending that out on a semi-regular cadence. If that's monthly for a really good bit of information, great. Do what you can, but certainly once a year with a 45-minute lesson, you're not going to get the impact that you're going to for smaller bits of information that are regularly sent out. If you can do it weekly, a 3-minute little video once a week on a Wednesday. What's today? Today's Tuesday. Let's say Tuesday. Every Tuesday, you get a 2-minute video, or a small blurb in your email. People start to think about that and see it. So I believe fully that those sort of regular trainings or blurbs that go out can have a big impact.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for joining us.
Appreciate it.
It was so great. Definitely going to share this out. We've actually added your LinkedIn post, or post, but LinkedIn profile in the chat. So if anybody wants to go learn more from Aaron, go connect with him on LinkedIn. We also posted a link of where we'll post a session on our website. We'll follow up with an email, and then Jenny will yell at me if I don't mention the community. So
That's
Jenny,
true.
talk about our
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, let's keep the conversations going in the community. I think most of you guys are already members, but if you're not, please join. And if you haven't engaged in a while, please engage, because these conversations are so important. Aaron, you're awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.